I've been excited about it for months, to be honest, if not years, because we had this record swing back in 2017, which, although large sort of chunks of the media don't want to make much of it, it was an enormous, enormous event. And all that's happened is the momentum hasn't stopped. If anything, Labour have been on an election footing since then. The Tories haven't. The Tories have been destroying themselves with Brexit, albeit, yes, members of the parliamentary Labour
Why did
Party
they vote? Why did they vote against it 3 times?
Well, I don't actually know the answer to that. I'm an activist for Labour Party.
Hang on. Let's pause a bit because you're on my doorstep as an activist saying that Labour have been on an election footing for years after that amazing, unprecedented swing in 2017. I think you're talking cobblers, but that's just my position. So the question then, as someone who is making a case, making a claim about an election footing, is why did the leadership that you admire so much vote against an election 3 times?
Well, for various reasons. The reason they said the entire time was because they wanted no deal to be taken off the table. So now that no deal is off the table until January the 31st, they deem that a suitable enough response from the EU to allow them to actually go on election footing full scale.
And after January the 31st?
Well, after January the 31st, they've lost the election. I think that'll completely change everything. And it will not be a reason of, we're changing, as in, we're going to change our tack. I think it'll be a change of leadership in the party. It'll be an enormous
change of leadership in which party?
In the Labour Party.
Well, they're going to change leader.
If they lose the election, I think there will be pressure from all sides of the Labour Party.
See, this is one of the reasons why I'm going to take a lot more encouragement to get enthusiastic about this. I love the idea of the Labour Party changing leader, but it would be at the...
Well, there you go. You've got reason to be enthusiastic.
Well, if you'd let me finish, it would involve 5 years of Boris Johnson being Prime Minister.
No, because I personally, and I think most people don't believe that's going to happen. I think we're told that he's the best thing ever by various media
Joe,
outlets, but he's definitely not.
Joe, please promise me that you'll just be a little bit more thoughtful when you're actually out on the stump, because you just told me that I should be pleased about the prospect of Jeremy Corbyn not being leader anymore, and I said to you in response to the words that came out of your mouth, I said the problem with that is that it means Boris Johnson would be Prime Minister for 5 years, and then you said, yes, but I don't think that's going to happen. So you've literally just tied yourself in a knot.
No, I didn't. I think we're having a conversation here.
We're not, mate. We're not having a conversation. One of us is listening to you, and one of us is not. Unfortunately, the person not listening to you is you. We're talking about British politics. But what can you say about British politics? We have a Prime Minister who is in the job because of promises that he has already broken. I'm not going to call him a liar today, okay? I reserve the right to call him a liar whenever I jolly well please. But he promised that he wouldn't submit a request for an extension, and we would be leaving on Thursday. We won't be, and he did submit a request for an extension. Pathetically, you think about how this plays out in other... Imagine if today, right, Donald Tusk sends the acceptance of Boris Johnson's request for this delay to Article 50. Imagine if Donald Tusk had briefed the British media that he wasn't going to sign it, and it was going to be an old photocopy. Just think for a minute how that would play across our, quotes, patriotic, and quotes, right-wing newspapers and commentators. We can't leave broadcasters out of this. How would that play? Could you imagine if Donald Tusk or Angela Merkel had sent us a profoundly important document that they didn't really want to send us, but they had to because reality, and they decided to try and curry favour with their own boneheaded supporters by releasing news that they had not signed it, even though that makes no difference whatsoever to its weight or legal relevance. Just think for a minute what the Sun would do with that. Oh, didn't sign it and they sent a photocopy. Does that make any difference to anything? No, but it's playing well in the German newspapers. Incredible, isn't it? When I say boneheaded, here's an example. So David is in Ely, beautiful part of the world. You should look out the window. When Boris campaigned saying that we would leave the EU on the 31st, he had no idea his own party would vote against him. David, he did have an idea that his own party might vote against him, mate, because he voted against his own party when Theresa May was Prime Minister. I sometimes wonder whether or not you people are real. You've sat there, you've sent me God knows, 20 lines of text. You're smart, James, spelt wrong, inevitably, Y-O-U-R. He had no idea his own party would vote against him. If only there'd been some clue. that Conservative MPs might vote against a Conservative Prime Minister in the context of a withdrawal agreement. Just some clue, some little hint, some tiny, tiny suggestion that was a plausible possibility, David. Oh, yeah, there's him actually doing it a few weeks ago. And you wonder why we're in the mess that we're in. Labour, meanwhile, has an array of vote-winning policies, but is doomed to election defeat with Jeremy Corbyn at the helm, according to Lord Mandelson. And just focus on the first line. Labour has an array of vote-winning policies. How do you get vote-winning policies across to the public? Through leadership. Where's the leadership? You tell me. 22 after 11. How much of this mess is the fault of opposition parties or party? And I know we're being very English today, and I'm really sorry about that. But I can't see any way through the woods at the minute, except by focusing upon English politics, because Brexit is an English disease. Northern Ireland didn't want it. Scotland didn't want it. Presumably Wales doesn't want it anymore. Certainly Wales is going to have an almighty problem with it if Northern Ireland manages to secure the sort of have you cake and eat it status that Boris Johnson surrendered during the negotiations after swearing blind. Remember again? Wrong again. There will be no customs border in the Irish Sea. Do you know, last week I thought it was funny when we spent hours searching for something from Boris Johnson's past that could be used as grounds for trusting him in the future. I thought it was funny. We took a call from some poor soul. I think his name was Carl. Thought that Boris Johnson had a proud record of LGBT support, so we just went through the catalogue of bigotry describing tank-topped bum boys and similar, and the poor fellow was reduced on national radio to going, James, you're a snowflake loser. That's what Boris Johnson has done to people.